It was a bright, sunny Saturday morning in Willow Creek, a quiet little neighborhood where everything seemed perfect. The birds were singing happy songs, hopping from tree to tree. The grass on every lawn sparkled with tiny drops of dew, like little diamonds catching the sunlight. Kids rode their bikes up and down the street, laughing and calling to each other. Neighbors waved hello, and the air smelled like fresh-cut grass and pancakes cooking somewhere nearby. It was the kind of morning that made you want to run outside and have an adventure. In the middle of all this, 12-year-old Timmy Parker was busy in his garage. Now, if you walked by, you might think Timmy was just another kid. He had messy brown hair that stuck up in funny places, a striped t-shirt, and sneakers with laces that never stayed tied. He looked like the kind of boy who'd be out playing tag or kicking a soccer ball. But Timmy, he wasn't out there with the other kids. He was inside, surrounded by tools, wires, and bits of metal, working on something special. See, Timmy loved making things. Not just any things, gadgets. He was always tinkering, which means messing around with stuff to see what he could build. His garage was like a treasure chest, but instead of gold and jewels, it was full of screwdrivers, old batteries, and pieces of computers he'd found at yard sales. To everyone else, it looked like a big mess. Boxes were stacked in corners, wires dangled from shelves, and half-finished projects sat on every table. But to Timmy, it was perfect. Every screw, every gear had a story, and he knew exactly where everything was. The neighbors didn't really get Timmy. They'd see him carrying weird stuff like a broken radio or a rusty fan and shake their heads. "That Parker boy's always up to something strange," they'd say with a chuckle. Some kids at school called him Tinker Tim and giggled like it was a joke, but Timmy didn't mind. He'd just smile and keep working. He knew something they didn't. He had a secret, and it was hidden right there in his garage. What was the secret? Well, for months, Timmy had been building something amazing. It wasn't a toy or a model rocket like the other kids might make. It was a super smart clock. Yup, a clock, but this wasn't the kind you hang on the wall to check if you're late for dinner. This clock was different. It could do things nobody would believe. It wasn't just for telling time, it was like a little brain in a box full of surprises. Timmy had started with an old clock he found in his attic. It was dusty and didn't work, but he saw something special in it. He took it apart piece by piece until it was just a pile of gears and springs. Then he got to work. He added tiny wires, a little screen, and even a chip from an old phone. Day after day, he'd sit in his garage, gluing, twisting, and testing. Sometimes he'd stay up late, his flashlight bouncing as he whispered to himself, "Almost got it." His mom would call Timmy bedtime, but he'd beg for 5 more minutes because he was so close. Now, on this sunny Saturday, the clock was almost done. Timmy sat at his workbench, his tongue sticking out a little as he focused. The garage door was open, letting in the warm breeze. Outside, he could hear kids shouting and a dog barking down the street, but Timmy barely noticed. His eyes were glued to the clock. It looked kind of funny, like something from a cartoon. The face was round with big numbers, but there were extra buttons and lights that blinked in funny patterns. It wasn't pretty, but Timmy thought it was awesome. He turned a tiny screw and leaned back, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Okay," he said to the clock like it could hear him. "Let's see what you can do today." He pressed a button and the clock hummed. A little light flashed green, then blue. Timmy grinned. It was working, but what did it do? That's the thing, Timmy's clock wasn't just smart, it was super smart. It could listen, it could learn, and it could do stuff that would make your jaw drop. Nobody else knew about it yet. Not his mom, not his best friend Jake, not even his dog Sparky, who was snoozing in the corner of the garage. To the whole neighborhood, Timmy was just a kid who liked to build weird stuff. They'd walk by and wave, maybe ask, "Whatcha making, Timmy?" He'd shrug and say, "Oh, just a thing." And they'd laugh, thinking it was another silly toy. But Timmy's clock, it was about to change everything. Imagine living in a place where everyone thinks they know you, but you've got something up your sleeve. That's how Timmy felt. He wasn't trying to show off or be sneaky. He just loved making things and solving puzzles. And this clock, it was his biggest puzzle yet. Every time he worked on it, he felt like an explorer, like he was finding a hidden world nobody else could see. So there he was, sitting in his garage, the clock buzzing softly in front of him. The morning sun poured in, making the tools on his table shine. Outside, Willow Creek went on like always, kids playing, cars driving by, neighbors chatting about the weather. It was a normal day, or so everyone thought, but Timmy's clock was about to make some serious noise. Not loud noise like a fire truck, but the kind of noise that gets everyone talking. What could a kid's clock do to shake up a whole neighborhood? Was it going to ring super loud and wake everyone up? Or maybe it could talk like a robot in a movie? Timmy wasn't telling yet. He just kept working, his fingers moving fast, his brain buzzing with ideas. The clock blinked again and Timmy's smile got bigger. Whatever it was going to be big. Now let's pause for a second. Picture yourself in Timmy's shoes. You're a kid with a secret project, something nobody else gets. Maybe it's a drawing, a story, or a game you made up. You know it's special, even if nobody else does. That's how Timmy felt. He wasn't trying to be famous or prove anything. He just wanted to build something cool. But sometimes, cool things have a way of surprising everyone. Willow Creek was a place where nothing big ever happened. People mowed their lawns, walked their dogs, and went to bed early. It was safe and cozy, like a big hug. But cozy places can have secrets too. And Timmy's secret was about to spill out, whether he was ready or not. His clock was ticking, literally and figuratively. Every beep, every flash was a step closer to something nobody saw coming. So what do you think Timmy's clock could do? Could it solve mysteries, catch bad guys, or maybe it was just for fun, like playing music really loud? Whatever it wasn't going to stay quiet for long. Timmy's garage was like a volcano, ready to burst with something amazing. And when it did, the whole neighborhood would know his name. Hey, before we keep going, let me ask you something. Have you ever made something you were super proud of? Maybe a fort, a picture, or even a snack that tasted awesome? Drop it in the comments and tell me where you're watching from today. Oh, and if you like stories about kids who do big things, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. Timmy's story is just getting started, and trust me, you're gonna want to see what this clock does. The sun climbed higher, and Willow Creek sparkled like a postcard. Timmy leaned over his workbench, whispering to his clock like it was his best friend. Outside, life went on calm and happy, but inside that garage something was brewing, something that would make everyone stop, look, and say, "Whoa, did Timmy really do that?" Stick around, because this adventure about to get wild. It was another sunny day in Willow Creek, and everything looked calm and happy. The kids zoomed by on their bikes and flowers bloomed in every yard. But there was one person who could make even the brightest day feel stormy, Mrs. Karen Thompson. She was the boss of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association, or HOA for short. Behind her back, everyone called her HOA Karen, and trust me, she earned that name. Karen wasn't like the friendly neighbors who waved and smiled. Oh no, she walked around like she was the queen of the whole street. She always carried a big clipboard scribbling notes about everything she didn't like. Her voice was loud, like a teacher calling you out in class, and she loved telling people what to do. If your mailbox had a tiny scratch, she'd notice. If your grass was a little too long, she'd write it down. And if you left a toy in your driveway, watch out, because Karen was coming for you. Nobody's house was ever good enough for her. She'd march up to Mr. Lopez's porch and say, "Your dog's dish is too shiny, it's distracting." Or she'd tell Mrs. Chen, "Those flowers are too red, plant something softer." The neighbors would roll their eyes when she wasn't looking, but they listened because Karen could make trouble. She'd send letters with big red stamps telling people to pay fines for silly things. Nobody wanted to argue with her, because arguing with Karen was like arguing with a brick wall. But the person Karen picked on most, that was Timmy Parker, the 12-year-old kid with the messy garage. Poor Timmy couldn't catch a break. Every time Karen walked by his house, she'd stop and stare at his open garage door. She'd put her hands on her hips, her clipboard swinging, and yell, "Timmy Parker, that garage is a disaster. All those wires and junk are making our street look awful." Timmy's garage was full of tools, old radios, and pieces of gadgets he was building. To Karen, it looked like a pile of trash, but to Timmy, it was his workshop where he made cool stuff. He was working on a super smart clock, something nobody else knew about yet. Karen didn't care about that. She'd point her finger and say, "You're bringing down property values, young man. Clean it up or I'll tell your mom to pay a fine." Now Timmy was a quiet kid. He didn't talk back or get mad. When Karen shouted, he'd just nod and say, "Okay, Mrs. Thompson." His brown eyes would stay calm, and he'd go back to his work. But inside, Timmy was paying attention. He wasn't just hearing Karen's words, he was watching her. Every time she bossed him around, he noticed little things, like how her voice got extra loud when she was nervous, or how she'd look over her shoulder like she didn't want anyone else to hear her. And here's the best part, Timmy's smart clock was watching her too. Yup, that clock he'd been building wasn't just for telling time. It was super sneaky, like a spy in a movie. It could listen to things happening around it, picking up voices and sounds nobody else noticed. Every time Karen came by, yelling about Timmy's garage, the clock was quietly recording her words. It was like having a secret helper hiding right there on Timmy's workbench. Timmy didn't know everything about his clock yet. He was still figuring out what it could do. But one day, while he was twisting some wires, the clock made a funny beep. Timmy leaned closer and it played back a tiny bit of Karen's voice. "That garage is a mess," it said, clear as day. Timmy's eyes got big. "Whoa," he whispered. "You heard that?" The clock blinked a little light, like it was saying, "Yup." From then on, Timmy started to wonder, why was Karen so mean about his garage? Sure, it was messy, but it wasn't hurting anybody. Other kids left skateboards outside and she didn't yell at them as much. Why was she always picking on him? And there was something else, something weird about the way she talked. Sometimes, when she thought nobody was listening, she'd mutter stuff under her breath. Stuff like, "They better not find out, or I'll make sure of it." Find out what? Timmy didn't know, but his clock was starting to give him clues. Karen kept marching around Willow Creek, bossing everyone around. She told Mr. Lopez his dog barked too much. She told Mrs. Chen her mailbox wasn't the right shade of blue, and every time she saw Timmy, she had something new to complain about. Your bike in the wrong spot, she'd snap, or why's that light on in your garage? It's too bright. Timmy would nod, same as always, but he was getting curious. What was Karen so worried about? Why did she care so much about little things? One afternoon, Karen came by while Timmy was fixing a gear on his clock. She stood at the edge of his driveway, her clipboard clutched tight. "Timmy," she shouted, "I'm warning you, if that garage isn't clean by tomorrow, I'm writing a big fine." Timmy looked up, his hands smudged with grease. "I'm working on it, Mrs. Thompson," he said politely. Karen huffed and stomped off, her shoes clicking on the sidewalk. Timmy watched her go, his brain buzzing. He turned to his clock and whispered, "What's her deal?" The clock didn't answer, but it blinked again like it knew something Timmy didn't. That's when Timmy decided to pay closer attention. He started keeping his garage door open just a little so the clock could hear more. Every time Karen walked by, it picked up bits and pieces of what she said. Sometimes it was just her yelling about mailboxes. But other times it was stranger stuff like, "Nobody better check the records." Records, what was that about? Timmy wasn't sure yet, but he had a feeling Karen was hiding something. Maybe it was nothing big, like she forgot to water her own flowers, or maybe it was something huge, something that could shake up all of Willow Creek. Either way, Timmy wasn't scared of her. He was just a kid with a messy garage, but he had his clock, and that clock was smarter than anyone knew. So what was Karen up to? Was she just a grumpy lady who loved rules, or was there more to her story? Timmy didn't have all the answers, but he was starting to get curious, really curious. And when a kid like Timmy gets curious, things can get pretty exciting. The days went by in Willow Creek and things got weirder. Mrs. Karen Thompson, the bossy head of the Homeowners Association, was acting meaner than ever. She walked around with her big clipboard, pointing at everything she didn't like. It was like she had a magnifying glass looking for tiny mistakes to yell about. Nobody could do anything right in her eyes, and she was making everyone grumpy. Karen started giving out fines for the silliest things. One day, she told Mr. Lopez he had to pay money because his dog, Rusty, barked one time. One bark. Rusty was the friendliest dog on the street, always wagging his tail when kids pet him. But Karen didn't care. "That noise is a problem," she snapped, writing on her clipboard. Mr. Lopez shook his head, confused, but he didn't argue. Nobody wanted to mess with Karen. Then she went after Mrs. Chen. Mrs. Chen had the prettiest garden in Willow Creek, with flowers in every color, red, yellow, pink, you name it. Everyone loved walking by her house because it looked like a rainbow. But Karen, she said the flowers were too bright. "Too bright, can you believe that? They hurt my eyes," Karen complained, handing Mrs. Chen a fine. Mrs. Chen just sighed and took the paper, her smile fading. Karen didn't stop there. She told the Wilson family their mailbox was too old because it had a little rust. She told Jake's dad his car was parked an inch too close to the curb. An inch. It was like Karen was trying to find something wrong with every single house. The neighbors started whispering to each other when she wasn't around. "What's her deal?" they'd say. "Why's she so mad all the time?" but nobody had an answer. While all this was happening, 12-year-old Timmy Parker was busy in his garage. He was still working on his super smart clock, the one he'd been building for months. Timmy loved tinkering, taking things apart, putting them back together, and making them better. His garage was full of tools, wires, and old gadgets. It looked messy to everyone else, but to Timmy it was his happy place. And that clock, it was his favorite project ever. Timmy's clock wasn't like a regular clock that just ticks and talks. It was special. It could do all kinds of cool stuff, like listen to sounds and save them. Every time Karen came by to yell about his messy garage, the clock heard her. It was like a little spy, quietly keeping track of everything she said. Timmy didn't even know how smart his clock was at first, but he was starting to figure it out. One afternoon, Timmy was in his garage, twisting a tiny screw on the clock. The sun was shining through the open door and he could hear kids playing outside. He was humming a little tune, totally focused, when the clock made a funny noise. Beep, beep. Timmy stopped and looked at it. "What's that?" he said, tilting his head. He pressed a button and something wild happened. The clock started playing a voice, Karen's voice. "I don't care if it's not fair," Karen's voice said, all sneaky and quiet. "Just make sure nobody finds out." Timmy's eyes got huge like saucers. He leaned closer, his heart thumping loud in his chest. "Whoa," he whispered. "What was that?" The clock didn't play anything else, but Timmy couldn't stop thinking about it. Karen sounded like she was hiding something. But what? Finds out what? His brain was buzzing with questions. Timmy sat back and stared at the clock. It was just a round thing with buttons and blinking lights, but now it felt like a treasure chest full of secrets. How did it hear Karen? Was she talking on her phone? And why did she sound so nervous? Timmy didn't know, but he wanted to find out. From that moment on, he decided to pay extra attention, not just to his clock, but to Karen. The next few days, Timmy watched Karen like a detective. He didn't follow her or anything creepy like that, but he kept his eyes open. And boy, did he notice some strange stuff. One night, when it was getting dark, he saw Karen walking down the street. She wasn't just strolling, she was sneaking. She wore a dark jacket and kept looking around like she didn't want anyone to see her. Timmy was peeking out his window, brushing his teeth before bed when he spotted her. Karen stopped at Mr. Lopez's mailbox. She opened it quick, looked inside, and scribbled something on her clipboard. Then she moved to Mrs. Chen's mailbox and did the same thing. Timmy's jaw dropped. "Is she spying on everyone?" he whispered to himself. Sparky, his dog, tilted his head like he was wondering too. Karen kept going, checking mailboxes up and down the street, her pen moving fast. What was she writing? And why was she doing it at night? Timmy ran to his garage the next morning to check his clock. He pressed the buttons, hoping it caught something else. Sure enough, it played another tiny clip of Karen's voice. "They won't know," she said, all hushed. "Just keep it quiet." Timmy's stomach did a flip. This wasn't just Karen being bossy, this was something bigger. Was she planning something sneaky? Was she trying to trick the whole neighborhood? He started keeping his garage door open a little wider so the clock could hear more. Every time Karen walked by, it picked up bits of what she said. Most of it was her usual complaints. "Timmy, clean that junk," or "Your bike's too shiny." But sometimes it was weird stuff. Like one day the clock caught her saying, "The money's safe for now." Money? What money? Timmy's head spun. Was Karen stealing or something? Timmy didn't tell anyone yet, not his mom, not his best friend Jake, not even Sparky. He wanted to be sure, but the more he watched, the more he learned. Karen wasn't just picking on people for fun. She was acting like someone with a big secret, and she was scared of getting caught. Every time she yelled at a neighbor, it was like she was trying to distract them. But from what? One day, Timmy saw Karen talking to a man in a fancy suit by her car. They were whispering, and Karen kept looking around, nervous. Timmy was riding his bike, pretending not to care, but he heard the man say, "Make sure it's done." Karen nodded fast and clutched her clipboard tighter. Timmy pedaled away, his heart racing. Whatever Karen was up to, it wasn't good. The clock kept listening and Timmy kept tinkering. He added a new button to make it save more sounds. Every beep from that clock made him feel closer to the truth. He wasn't scared of Karen, even though she was loud and mean. He was just a kid, but he had his smarts and his clock, and together they were getting closer to something huge. So what was Karen hiding? Was she spying for a reason, or was she just being her grumpy self? Timmy didn't know yet, but he wasn't giving up. His clock was like a puzzle, and every sound it caught was a piece. Soon he'd have enough pieces to see the whole picture. And when he did, Willow Creek was in for a big surprise. It was a warm evening in Willow Creek, and the sky was turning pink and orange. The kids were still playing outside, riding bikes and tossing balls, while grown-ups sat on porches, chatting and sipping lemonade. Everything seemed calm, like any other night in the neighborhood. But at Timmy Parker's house, things were about to get wild. Timmy was in his garage, as usual, working on his super smart clock. He was twisting a tiny wire, his tongue sticking out a little because he was so focused. The clock sat on his workbench, its lights blinking softly. It looked like a regular clock with a round face and big numbers, but Timmy knew it was way more than that. It could listen, save sounds, and even do sneaky stuff he was still figuring out. He loved that clock. It was like his best friend, full of surprises. Suddenly, the garage door rattled and a loud voice broke the quiet. "Timmy Parker." It was Mrs. Karen Thompson, the mean boss of the Homeowners Association. Everyone called her HOA Karen when she wasn't around because she was always bossing people and writing fines. Tonight, she looked madder than ever. Her face was red like a tomato, and she was waving her phone in the air like a flag. "Your stupid clock is too loud," Karen shouted, stomping toward the garage. "It's ticking like a bomb. I can hear it from my house." Timmy froze, his screwdriver still in his hand. He blinked at her, confused. Mrs. Thompson," he said, "my clock's not even on." And it was true. The clock was quiet, just sitting there, its lights flashing gently. It wasn't making a single sound. But Karen didn't listen. She never listened. "Don't lie to me, young man," she yelled, her voice so loud the neighbors started peeking out their windows. "That thing's dangerous. I'm calling 911 right now." Timmy's heart jumped. The police for his clock. He opened his mouth to explain, but Karen was already dialing, her fingers moving fast. "Hello, police," she said into the phone, her voice all dramatic. "There's a dangerous device in Timmy Parker's garage. It's like a bomb. You need to come quick." Timmy stood there, his stomach twisting. He wasn't scared exactly, but he was worried. What if the police believed her? What if they took his clock away? He'd worked so hard on it, staying up late, gluing wires and testing buttons. It was his best invention ever, and now Karen was trying to ruin everything. He looked at the clock, hoping it could somehow fix this mess, but it just blinked at him like it was waiting for something. Before Timmy could say another word, the street lit up with flashing lights. Woo woo woo, sirens wailed, loud and sharp, echoing through Willow Creek. 2 police cars zoomed up and parked right in front of Timmy's house. Neighbors stepped outside, whispering to each other. "What's going on?" they said. "Is Timmy in trouble?" Karen stood by the garage, her arms crossed, a big smirk on her face. She looked like she'd just won a prize. "See," she said to Timmy. "I told you that clock was bad news." Timmy's mom ran out of the house, her apron still on from making dinner. "Timmy, what's happening?" she asked, her eyes wide. Timmy shrugged, still holding his screwdriver. "I don't know, Mom," he said. "She says my clock's loud, but it's not." His mom looked at Karen, then at the police cars, totally confused. The car doors opened and 2 police officers stepped out. They were tall, with shiny badges and serious faces. One held a notebook and the other had a walkie-talkie that crackled with voices. Karen pointed at Timmy's garage, ready to tell her story. "Officers," she said, all loud and proud. "That boy's got a dangerous machine in there. It's making noises and I'm sure it's not safe." But here, where things got crazy, the officers didn't even look at Timmy. They didn't walk toward the garage or ask about the clock. Instead, they turned to Karen. The officer with the notebook flipped it open and said, "Mrs. Thompson, we need to talk to you." Karen's smirk disappeared like someone had wiped it off her face. "Me," she said, her voice squeaky. "What for? I'm the one who called you."